I've been having these weird thoughts lately. Like, is any of this for real? Or not?
Chainsaw Man's ending, a bit controversial. I get why part 2's polarizing. Fujimoto already kind of told us this might happen. He made a one-shot before part 2 that touched on that fear with not being able to live up to expectations. And that's always a scary place for an author to be. Now, do I think part 2 is amazing? No, I don't. But I enjoyed it. I had fun. I liked the characters, I liked Denji's arc, and at the same time, I understand some of the criticism. The pacing can feel like it drags, especially with the bi-weekly schedule. Arcs feel longer than they actually are. But what I got from part 2 is what I got from my second read of part 1. Recontextualization, especially that final moment in part 1 where Denji says he wants to be Chainsaw Man. Part 2 reframes that entirely, and I think that that's pretty beautiful because it makes sense. Chainsaw Man's a layered story. Unlike Fire Punch where it feels like everything keeps escalating, Chainsaw Man has many layers, and those layers sometimes don't reveal themselves until you take a second look at the story or even a third look. To me, the themes of this story aren't just only trauma, but also addiction. And it's a critique, in my opinion, on the idea of being a hero, especially a shonen protagonist. But we'll get on that later. But the biggest theme here is that addiction. Denji's addicted to being Chainsaw Man. He's addicted to the idea of being a hero. His entire identity, his sense of self, his purpose is tied to Chainsaw Man. It almost feels like Denji is nothing without him. At least that's what Denji feels. That gets me to one critique that I never quite understood. People say Denji doesn't make choices in part 2, and that's not true. Every single decision he made pushes the story forward. It's not always a good decision, but it matters, and the story criticizes him for it. Denji criticizes himself. He's stuck like a perpetual motion machine, just going in circles. He says so himself. Because fighting addiction isn't easy, and it's not something you could do alone, and Denji doesn't really have that. He needs to be the adult when it comes to Nayuta, and Asa's just as lost as he is. No one is in his corner. The people that are here are either exploiting him or they have their own agendas. And this is where a comparison comes to my mind. Denji is a lot like Andrew Neiman from 2016's Whiplash. Andrew is a jazz drummer who's abused and manipulated by his teacher all in the pursuit of greatness. He destroys relationships, isolates himself, and pushes himself to the brink mentally and physically. He is obsessed with the idea of being great, to matter. He's constantly looked down as someone who's not good enough, even in the eyes of his parents. And just like Denji, Andrew doesn't get pulled back at the last second. And I guess that's what frustrates people. And I get that. We want Denji to win, and technically he does, even though people would say it's not the real Denji, but I don't think that's true. There's a misconception going around that the entirety of Chainsaw Man is just a dream because of Chainsaw Man's ending. And that's just not true. The universe was reset. It's pretty clear. Those are two different things. I think a very helpful comparison is that of Kingdom Hearts and the idea of memories. It's not about dreaming. It's about deja vu, a lingering feeling. Characters have changed, things have changed, but something remains the same, and they can't quite put their finger on it. But the quote from Kingdom Hearts that I'm thinking about is when Sora is talking with Jiminy Cricket, and he says, "The words may be gone, but never the memories. You can hang on to them for us. Just keep us in your heart, and we'll be there when you need us most." Denji is given a second chance, a new life, this time without relying on Chainsaw Man as a crutch. And Pochita's still there, still protecting him. The moment where Denji's heart reacts when Asa calls him Chainsaw Man, it felt like a rebirth of sorts. I know people say it doesn't make any sense, but Pochita's powers were never fully explained, and I don't think they were meant to be. If your power is to erase things from existence, what happens when you erase yourself? It's a question that has no answer, kind of like a paradox, I think. And the ending leads into that. And honestly, I think a lot of the hate is a bit intense. And I wouldn't be surprised if opinions flip when it gets animated. It always happens. My Hero Academia, same pattern. Attack on Titan, super controversial and widely praised after the adaptation. And I think Chainsaw Man will follow the same path. And then you have people that compare the ending to Stone Ocean, saying that Stone Ocean did it better, while conveniently forgetting that Stone Ocean's ending was also panned when it first came out. It's a pattern, and recently it feels like it always happens. Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man, Demon Slayer, Attack on Titan. Whenever a big series ends, it's almost guaranteed to be controversial. And I'm not saying Chainsaw Man needs fixing, obviously not, but animes do change perspectives. Time changes perspective. Look at the Star Wars prequel trilogy. They were hated, and yeah, they still are to an extent, but now they've built a loyal fan base where people will argue that these movies are misunderstood masterpieces. I personally don't think that they are, but this is not a Star Wars video. Like I said, I really enjoyed the ending. It worked for me. It was heartbreaking to see Denji continuously go down the cycle, but I think that's the point. I don't think it's poorly written, it's messy. And it's hard to see a character that we followed for so long continuously destroy himself. I'm not gonna fault anyone for not liking it, but what I do have a problem is hyperbolic tics. Stuff like, if you like this ending, you're stupid. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that video, and I wouldn't talk about it, except the creator thought that he would take pot shots at Medi for making an hour-long video on Yoshida. Just because someone can find enjoyment and find things to say about a series that you're not thinking so deeply about, doesn't mean that their opinion is less valid than yours. It's this condescending attitude, even in the comment section, that really grinds my gears, that makes discourse surrounding the ending and Chainsaw Man terrible. People jumping on the bandwagon who've never read the series before, saying, I always knew it was bad. Stuff like this just makes me bang my head. Or people purposefully going into the story, wanting to hate it, and making up reasons to. Twitter's a fucking cesspool. But guys, let's take a pause. If you like anything I have to say, please leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, hype the video. All that stuff greatly helps out the channel. You have no idea. Everyone is allowed to have their own opinion, and right now the popular one is the ending is bad, the series fell off, it's worse than everything else. And I'm not here to change your mind, I'm here to share what the story gave me. I think part 1 is about obsession, and part 2 is about addiction. And I love that angle. Part 1, obsession, wanting something, chasing something, projecting onto others. And then part 2 comes along, sprinkles the trauma that part 1 left, and the addiction that that trauma leaves behind. The scars, every choice Denji makes hurt him, he has no guidance. He's still a child and he's left on his own. So what does he do? He burns everything down, and at the center of it all is Puchita, the smoking gun. And I love that idea, because at the end of the day, he's still a devil. And even when he's trying to help Denji, it ends up making things worse. Because Denji can keep dreaming, but he can never be satisfied. How can he? Nothing is bringing Aki back, nothing is bringing power back, and the rest of his connections barely there. All he really has is Nayuta and Asa, and even that is fragile. He's just a kid being exploited all over again. And on a side note, I just want to talk a little bit about Yoru. I genuinely do not understand how people interpret that consent scene the way that they do. We literally had a chapter beforehand comparing Yoru and Asa's to Bird. Yoru's entire ability is tied to guilt, understanding it, weaponizing it, and then she tells Asa to let go of that guilt, fully accepting she's about to die. Throughout the story, we've seen Yoru become more human through Asa, starting to understand her. So for people to say that she's lying about consent doesn't make any sense. It would feel completely out of character for Yoru and for Fujimoto, and it would just make the previous chapter feel meaningless. Now, wanting Asa's perspective, that's fair, but the story has been very clear. Listen to what it's saying, not what you think it's saying. But part 2 is messy, and it's messy by design. At least that's what I think. Because the subject matter that it handles is messy. Addiction is messy. And while I wouldn't call it a full deconstruction of shonen, it definitely plays with those ideas. Because in the typical shonen story, the hero loses something, they grow, and they come back stronger. But these characters are just kids. Naruto is 12, Ichigo is 16, Luffy is 16. And despite that, they're rarely treated like kids. One exception that comes to mind is Busorenkin. Even then, it still leans into that larger-than-life heroism. But Denji? Denji really is just a kid who went through way too much. A kid who should have never been a hero. He doesn't grow stronger from loss. He breaks, he spirals. His arc is a negative character arc, similar to Sasuke, though expressed differently. And yeah, maybe it is a bit extreme. The world literally ends because of his choices. And that's why I love it. It takes classic shonen and even classic superhero storytelling and flips it. Hero loses something, becomes stronger. That's storytelling 101. But Chainsaw Man asked the question, what if that just didn't happen? What if loss didn't make you better? What if it just made you worse? Denji feels like an anti-shonen protagonist, like the anti-superhero. And that's what makes it so special. And then people are calling Fujimoto a hack, saying he doesn't care about his work. And that's insane to me. This is someone who's been writing for years. Told the story he wanted to tell. Whether it worked for you or not, that's fine. But questioning his passion? That's just not it. These authors bust their backs. They get attached to the worlds and characters they write. They pour blood, sweat, and tears. and then the community turns on them. It's a shame. It's like all nuances forgoed when the author does something that you don't like. And that idea isn't just unique to Chainsaw Man.